Happy Thursday, SMITE fans, and welcome into the SMITE Challenger Circuit week number 5. And it's also the 5th and final week of the SEC for this phase. Go a little downtime. They'll have SEC playoffs, SOC, SEC relegations, all that sort of stuff will be happening moving forward. But we've got some games to get through here this week, and some pretty impactful ones as far as standing goes between each of these regions. As you know, a couple EU matches, a couple North American matches, and that'll be it here for today in the SEC. My name's Dolson. Mifflin is with me to start off this fine Thursday. And Miff, it all comes down to this. We've been back and forth all phase long, competitive SMITE. One more set of matches for each of these teams.
And it feels like almost every team is like making roster changes with this big event just looming on the horizon. So excited to see what every squad is bringing this week, because I feel like it's about time we stop making those roster changes if you're really gearing up for the relegations, for the playoffs. So I'm expecting the rosters we see today to be the last iterations of them.
Yeah, Miff, it's important for the teams that have made changes in past weeks to start to get the wheels spinning a bit moving forward. Let's see the matches we've got for you here today. As I mentioned, a couple EU matches, a couple NA matches, but this is the EU schedule for this week. Niflheim Wargs and the Highland Ravens will start off our show. Hex Mambo, Aru Scorpions up next. And then if you're looking for the Gilded Gladiators versus the Styx Ferrymen, that will be tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern Time prior to the SMITE Pro League kicking off for the week. So you look at matches, and traditionally, Miff, between the Wargs, the Ravens, the Mambo, the Scorpions, lopsided as far as standings go. Specifically, Aru Scorpions in the past have just not been there with the standings, been further down, but now they're starting to play competitive SMITE. The Wargs used to be one of the big teams here in the EU SEC, now down towards the bottom. And so I think you got to look at the Ravens here. This is a must-win match. You're getting to the end of the phase. You're going against the 0-4 Wargs. You're right in the middle of the pack at 2-2. This is an important one for this team, I think, confidence-wise.
Yeah, I think so. You might be able to catch up a bit in the standings. Let's say Styx Ferrymen struggle a little bit. All of a sudden, now you're in 3rd seed, which could be very important for the Highland Ravens. But the Niflheim Wargs, being at 0-4, I think is not indicative of the skill that this team has had. I mean, you said it earlier, one of the top teams from the last phase. What happened? I think they are in a very good position to, at minimum, play spoiler to the Ravens. And if they're anything like me in my competitive career, playing spoiler
they're
is
retiring.
Like, okay, well, all right. Playing spoiler.
They're going to come cast.
Well, I hope not. That's what I'm doing. Playing spoiler.
They're going to win Worlds.
Well, yeah, but you got to go through the SPL first. Playing spoiler feels really good.
I'm glad we got there eventually. Yeah, this Wargs team, as far as Phase 1, EU SEC, Niflheim Wargs, one player is remaining from that squad. Biteyyy is still on this Wargs team. Angry and Kana, they're on the team that they're about to play. Preds elsewhere in the EU SEC, so this Wargs team has shifted around. The Highland Ravens, a team now headlined by Adapting.
King Kennett
has been playing some good SMITE, and so those are the types of things I look forward to moving into picks and bans for game number 1. Because, Miff, I think Adapting carried so much weight when you look at this Ravens squad, and I wondered if we would see teams like heavily prioritize Adapting in picks and bans. Haven't quite seen that yet. Feels like he slotted in nicely, though, getting the gears going back in competitive SMITE.
Yeah, and when I watch Adapting nowadays, it is almost eerie. It feels like he's traveled in a time machine, because he's playing the exact same stuff. He's still that mechanical monster. He's still farming up in the jungle. Maybe we'll see a Thor. We just might. He might be one of the only players still playing it. We might see a Nemesis, something along those lines. Nemesis is a little bit less eclectic, I suppose, but still certainly one that he's been playing for his entire career, which might be a slight reason we don't see these teams dedicating their entire ban column to Adapting, because he's just going to play what he wants, and what he wants to play for the most part, this is true of a lot of the European SEC, isn't exactly the highest tier meta as of right now.
This is what I wanted to see from Adapting, the hyper carry style of pick. The Mercury will do that. Now that said, Miff, I think if you zoom out and you look at the meta in general over the last few weeks, Mercury for a while was it. It was the Golden Blade, the crit later on in the game. SPL-wise, steep drop-off in Mercury, to the point not even picked and banned anymore. Do you still think there's value in this pick?
anytime that you could build crit and land auto attacks, you're probably going to find at least a little bit of value. Land one first ability from Mercury in the middle of a team fight, and all of a sudden you remove someone from the fight because it does upwards of 1,000 damage, especially at less coordinated levels of play. Mercury struggles in the SPL because of how point blank and how barrel stuff his gameplay style is. In the SCC and the SOC by extension, a little bit less coordination overall, a lot more difficult for you to deal with these late game hyper carries that have got really good turnaround potential. So I think in particular, Mercury probably should be prioritized highly in the SCC, if not the SPL. So still certainly some value there. I mean, no matter what, you're at least destroying an objective pretty fast.
Right, you would think that a team that feels as coordinated as the Ravens going up against a team in the Wargs who have just not gotten it going yet this phase, 0-4 in the USCC, that style of pick could look good. On the flip side, the Wargs looking scrappy. A lot of damage, a lot of scaling in this composition between a Houyi, a Sol, and a Susano. So you're still needing Sol laner, you're still needing support if you're the Wargs moving forward. Ganesh seems like it might have been a good pick, and the Ravens will end up taking it away. And then a pass ban from the Wargs. Don't often get to see that. Did work out the one time we saw it at the SPL level. I think it was the Scarabs who passed the ban, and I was for sure it was going to bite them, but it didn't. And so the couple of support bans on the Raven side limit the God pool. But Fenrir ends up rolling through anyway, Myth. Looks like a support Fenrir here in game 1.
Yeah, very interesting composition top to bottom from the Wargs. Fenrir has kind of fallen off that support tree because of the scaling changes he's received in the most recent years. Has really made it difficult for him to go like that tanky path, but also still do relevant damage. So excited to see what this Fenrir is capable of. Up against some of the targets of the Ravens, you should be able to find pretty decent value. Mercury, very difficult to CC immune Ragnarok with that ultimate. Thoth, no CC immune in the kit. Kepri has got the cleanse, so maybe you're looking to pick him up a little bit more often. And Opwash to round out the draft for the Wargs. This is gotta be Opwash solo, right? And Sol mid, Susano jungle, and then your dual lane Houyi Fenrir. It's squishy, and really no initiation.
I mean, the Wargs have, if my math is correct, and if the format's the same, no avenue into playoff territory. So maybe let's get creative and see what we can get done.
Whatever we got to do.
I guess if nothing else, the Wargs have a creative composition. Going into game number 1 against the Highland Ravens, the Ravens absolutely still standings to play for. The Niflheim Wargs, as you get to the end of this phase in the EU SEC, just hoping to get some cohesion ready for relegations, for hopefully the next phase of the SEC. So it'll be Opwash solo.
Hey, lucky guess.
And then everything else seems about what we predicted here, Myth. And so walk me through it. Solo lane has been almost a non-factor for the first, handful of minutes in the game. Do you think that could change you with an Opwash?
I'm thinking we're probably going to get less action in the Soul Lane.
Got it.
Depending on how the next couple of levels go. I'm assuming that Kana should be able to get enough pressure on wave that it's pretty easy to zone an Opwash. He doesn't have the best boxing tools, really doesn't have enough sustain early on. And I think that's the whole conversation, really. I guess once the ganks start to roll through, Ardio can get stunned by Opwash every time she tries to deploy that energy surge heal, but outside of that, expect a whole lot of what you're seeing right now. He is going to sit on his tower line, Opwash that is. Kha'Zix really does not want to give any space over to Kana, does not want to stand close, because if he does, probably just going to lose out in the trade.
That's an important beads from adapting. Worst Turtle nearly got the pull in, but Worst Turtle ended up taking a decent amount of poke on the flip side. So, Thoth has not been the overwhelming mid lane pick by any means, but I think it does get a bit of boost when it's Angry who's playing it. I mean, just such a talented player for this Highland Ravens team, especially later in the game. If I'm remembering correctly, it was Angry.
Yikes.
So all he jumps in, gets the beads off of Vaporish Coast on the Artemis! Who gets first blood? All the body blocks! And it ends up being Calvin who grabs first blood, and Vaporish Coast and Calvin both live. Spuddio not happy with his odds and will back away.
Calvin hit Vaporish Coast with that second ability, giving up so much damage mitigation, so Coast just survives that trade. And then I look at the build, I'm expecting like Death Toll to survive something like that. Kana forced to use the beads. Good rotation from Worst Turtle. Spudio, similarly, forced to use the beads on the other side.
Beads everywhere.
But yeah, I was expecting some sustain in the build, but no, that was 100% Khepri just keeping Vaporish Coast alive.
Smart plays from both of these teams. Seeing activity all over the map. Ollie,
you sure?
Back from base. Yeah, he's sure, Miff, but now he's back in lane with 10% HP and no pots. So we're going to have to sustain up in lane somehow. Use that second ability, get things going, I suppose.
I don't think he has it, my guy.
Yeah, probably not yet. Level 3, yeah, there we go, we got it. Button
he's in trouble.
Right on to Ollie, into the trap, the body blocks. Yes, please, Vaporish Coast with another one for the Highland Ravens.
Immediately into the laugh spam. And look, this is a lane matchup that is very poor for Fenrir in general. Until level 5, there's really not much you can do. Brutalize is going to lose to anything that is in this duo lane. An abduct from Khepri, a trap on your feet for Vaporish Coast, and then both of those CCs kind of lead into each other. I mean, we saw it. Brutalize, immediately into a trap, immediately into an abduct, and that was 10% of his HP, and he get caught again. It's just an unfortunate situation. I think, as of now, and it's the worst feeling and the worst prognosis I can give to a Fenrir.
And the worst turtle.
And a worst turtle. Just play passively. Yeah, you're playing for the mid game now. Your early game laning phase is essentially over.
Another rotation from Worst Turtle. Gets to knock up onto Kana, teleport under the tower. And Worst Turtle playing with fire a bit, nearly. Gets taken down by the tower. Kana survives though, doesn't have teleport, so you'll have to walk back into lane. And Kha'Zix has been receiving some help from Worst Turtle. That's now the second rotation over from the Susano. And Kana waiting for the beads to come back. Now adapting with the Sonic Boom. Gets the beads off of Kha'Zix. Empty the crypts. I don't know, doing a whole lot of nothing there, but adapting will send Kha'Zix back. And this is
rotation.
Long, drawn out fight. One last bit of damage is all the Ravens need, but they won't find it. Worst Turtle back from base, and we'll fight again, and the Niflheim Wargs end up being the team to get the kill.
Self-sustain from Opwash there, just picking up his own corpses to keep him right over that death threshold. Means that adapting and Kana baited all the way to the tower line, give up their life to the counter rotation of Worst Turtle. And look at the timing of it. Adapting actually in some trouble.
Adapting does not have beads, so Worst Turtle with a pull. Oh my god. Dodging a lot here. Worst Turtle is not aggroing the tower. Wow, that was juggled perfectly by the Wargs. And Adapting ends up falling for the second kill of the game. So now the Wargs jungler with 2 kills. Suddenly Calvin is on the right side of the map. Ollie is here as well, but there's no damage to kill off this thing.
Yeah, no follow-up for the Fenrir either, so probably not a Ragnarok re-engage, just maybe getting annoying around this blue buff. Has to play safe. There's decent damage output. Blue buff secured by Kana. Now Ollie forced to use that ultimate defensively. Low odds play,
what is
but
happening right now?
I respect the attempt. But I want to highlight Adapting's juke shoes inside of that tower. Had Kha'Zix missed even one more ability, there's no way he's landing an auto attack through tower. He'd already missed the first, I believe the second. No, the second landed, third missed. That means, had Worst Turtle been forced to pull the tower himself, Worst Turtle does not win that engagement. He just gets thrown into the wall, tower would have finished him off. So Adapting very nearly turns that around. But fortunately, Kha'Zix able to land just one ability, and that's all he needed. It wasn't about the damage, it was just about tanking up that structure.
We are tied up now in the kills department after what was a brutal start on the left side of the map. The Wargs have answered back with some kills here on right. Kha'Zix, without beads, should be a kill to Adapting, and Golden Blade on the Mercury helps with clear. Unfortunately, no rage this early on in the build, otherwise Adapting would be very happy. That gives Kana a bit of breathing room over on right.
If he had rage, he'd be happy.
Yeah?
But I think he'd be angry.
No, that's in the mid for the Ravens.
Okay.
Let's go!
It's so early. Good lord. Worst Turtle getting involved yet again. Vaporish, he's just dead. Easy pickup for the jungler of the Niflheim Wargs.
He's going to get back, right? Yeah, Adapting.
Yeah, you can't rotate that far up, I suppose, towards your own purple buff. If Worst Turtle is on that side of the map, especially with this slow style of build, Worst Turtle has already got a whole lot of power with his very quick build. Crusher in first slot, probably Transcendence next up. Still stacking Devourer's Gauntlet. Vaporish Coast just did not have the fight back just yet.
Worst Turtle is 2 levels, now 1 level up on Adapting. The Root connects, maybe a kill there onto Spudio. Ultimate down from the Houyi. Adapting, dodges it out. And will just put a little extra pressure on Spuddio on the fadeaway there. First turtle, my goodness. Myth, this is maybe the most active I've seen junglers in a little while. Think about the EUFCC and 7.5 minutes into a game.
Not first blood just yet.
No, normally we're farming up, we're hanging out, much less 3 kills aside. Now, Calvin and Vaporish Ghost got 2 of the 3 kills for the Ravens, but Worst Turtle has just been all over the place. Level 8, 3 kills, invade, speed buff. Adapting is unfortunately going to have to walk back. See, that one is dropped. And there's a ward there, Myth. So the Niflheim Wargs really get full payoff here of adapting, walking forward, realizing his speed is gone, and having to look elsewhere.
Hightori uses the ultimate in mid, but does not connect with anyone. But you are right to say that the junglers have been incredibly active. I think it makes sense for the Niflheim Wargs. You got a Fenrir support who had a pretty tough time in lane, so he's rotated out and essentially just acting as a secondary jungler. Should make it easier for Worst Turtle to get involved. Calvin pulled in, forced to use the beads. Abduct no good. Maybe Worst Turtle can do it?
Ollie's got to be careful here, but it's really Calvin who's under threat. Worst Turtle, 4 kills in a row. All of them for the Niflheim Wargs. Has now impacted every lane on the map except for mid. Tori and Kha'Zix have eyes for adapting, but adapting again has dodged just about everything. Gotta be careful because Worst Turtle looking for Angry over in mid. Looks like we'll find the initiation, final judgment up, but Worst Turtle, one bit of damage away, and Angry grabs the shutdown, and thin margins pay off for the Ravens.
Worst Turtle just doesn't charge up that ultimate quite enough. Had he left it up for maybe a quarter of a second, you've got the damage you need to finish off that kill, unfortunately, for the Susanoo, who was 4-0, will fall down to 4-1, giving over a massive bounty to Angry. Pretty rough going for the Niflheim Wargs. If you got to give up that bounty, you probably prefer it to be anyone besides Angry, or adapting for that matter. But a Thoth getting to expedite that early game pace is just so important for the Ravens team fight.
Adapting, being run down by Ollie, but will make it out alive. And so a rare initiation without a kill in the first 10 minutes of this game. So many of these fights resulted in a death or two. Uses the beads. Brutalized from Ollie, took him beneath the tier 2 tower. Calvin rotates through, hoping to defend the blue buff. And the last bit of damage is down, and it is secured by the Warg, so a successful blue buff invade. Now Kana, a bit worse for wear. And wouldn't you guess it, Worst Turtle is here on right. Tier 2 Hydra is on the back end of a shutdown from Angry. And I don't think that's going to slow down the pace of this Susanoo.
No, he is still got a level lead. He's slightly ahead in itemization. Plenty of experience and gold to pick up on the map as well, whereas adapting, we saw it earlier, has been scrounging and scavenging for all the gold that he can find, be it invading a back camp with Hightori staring him down, or rotating through a lane and just grabbing up some of those waves. So I'm keeping my eyes on adapting as he does move in. Worst Turtle, not in a great spot.
Worst Turtle gets the double Typhoon. Scarab's Blessing through from Calvin. If there's any range damage that can finish off that kill. Final Judgment, no good from Angry. Those normally hit, but what does hit is a Tori. And the Niflheim Wargs continue to roll here. Unfortunately for them, that just closes up the gold gap. Not completely even, but very, very close. The Wargs heavily ahead as far as experience goes, though. So Tori now has a level lead. Worst Turtle does as well. Been some experience. And I can't believe it. After an 0-2 start from Ollie, Ollie has a level lead over Calvin as well. Last few minutes have all been Wargs.
Yeah, it feels like Calvin's just been kind of led by the nose all the way across the map, trying to match the rotations
He's
of
a dog.
Ollie.
They do that.
Oh, Calvin maybe has a good engage here. Hightori, simply too much damage already. Adapting steps up, lands one punch, and realizes probably doesn't win that fight, even in his own tower line. So instead, disengages. Ollie, on the other hand, also forced to disengage, this time with his ultimate. So Ragnarok down for the next minute or so means that the Highland Ravens could try and get aggressive elsewhere on the map. Looking at map state, maybe that blue buff could be a good invade spot.
Could be. Been the Wargs' presence over the last few minutes, all around that blue buff. Tori has done a lot of damage up to this point, Myth. We've already mentioned that. Pythag's piece into Warlock staff.
Weird build.
Yeah, unique, right?
That's right.
I'm going to say unique. You're going to say weird, but the meaning is the same.
Yeah, I mean, the caster diction is just so curious, right? What was it? What's our favorite one? What a interesting decision, an interesting build. I would argue like 85% of the time when we say interesting, we just mean like bad.
Yeah. I don't think I'm qualified to make a good or bad judgment, you know? I think when I say
How long
interesting...
you been casting SMITE?
I'm in my 3rd year.
I think you can say a good or bad statement.
Sure, but it's less qualified than like the guy next to me. So I'd rather get your opinion on it.
Uh-huh.
Because between the two of us, you're the one who's more qualified, you know, as the retired world champion, now caster,
washed up,
SMITE extraordinaire. No, see, you're negative again. I prefer your opinion.
I appreciate it. Well, my opinion is it's honestly a pretty good build. Pythax piece.
Didn't you say interesting?
No, I didn't say interesting. I said weird. Which is, yeah, that's different. You know, weird is just like it's something you don't get to see too often. Pythax in first slot, getting over a little bit of aura to the rest of your team. Synergizes really well with the op wash on the squad. Also giving some lifesteal over to Ollie with Seething Howl. Means that he's going to be very sustainable in these team fights. And then you're immediately going into just some survivability with some % pen on it. And then afterward, tier 2 ring. You essentially pick of the litter, but generally you want to get some more penetration in that 3rd slot. I suppose you could slow it down and go down that lifesteal tree if you so choose, because you've already got the 10% from Warlocks, but slow.
Adapting, no chance he wins that fight. Final Judgment doesn't have enough damage either, but Atori does, and the Niflheim Wargs win. The 2 versus 2 over in mid. Calvin just too far away from getting that Scarab's Blessing off. And it has just been bad to worse this game for the Highland Ravens after what was a great start. Now Adapting gets Rage as his 2nd item. Unfortunately, the 1 kill is all he's got. And Worst Turtle has 5 with the fully completed Hydras. And Atori is stacking up nicely as well. So that's a nice little trade there over in mid. Ollie jumps through, stun onto Vaporish Coast. Atori, again's got a lot of damage. Tusky with the return stun on the end of this fight. Scarab's Blessing zooms Vaporish Coast away. Brutalize canceled out maybe there, and Ollie won't end up getting the kill onto Vaporish Coast. Red buff gets dropped down by Spuddio on the back end.
Yeah, Ollie has to cancel that Brutalize because the Scarab's Blessing was still procced, would have just revived Vaporish Coast and potentially gone into that tower and put yourself in a pretty poor position. So I like the attempt, just saying, hey, if it wears off, I'm here, Brutalize will finish the kill. And had it worn off, he probably would have been willing to trade out his own life, but because it was still there, instead disengages and makes it out with his life. Even just removing Scarab's Blessing from the map and taking the beads off of Vaporish Coast, a pretty valuable exchange for the Niflheim Wargs. I'm expecting to see them probably group up on this Gold Fury very shortly. They've got phenomenal burn potential, not the greatest confirmation on the map. That belongs to Angry from the Highland Ravens, but I'm not sure that Angry's going to want to walk up when he's got stuff like this walking him down.
Angry doesn't have beads.
Ooh, got the dash.
Therefore, likely no chance. The Worst Turtle caught out by the Sonic Boom, finds his way into the backline anyway. Adapting with the beads. Will help out Vaporish Coast in getting a kill onto Worst Turtle, so at least a 1-for-1 trade. Actually, it's going to get worse here for the Niflheim Wargs, you would think. Adapting blinks forward, slow, dashes in. Last bit of damage misses, but one more auto. Gives another rage stack to Adapting.
2 dead for 20 seconds at least, and the largest target on the Niflheim Wargs at that. 2 rage stacks. Feels like the Highland Ravens could have possibly made a play for the gold free there. Didn't really have eyes on Itori, so I suppose concerned about his rotation path and whether or not there'd be steal potential. So instead of reset back to neutral, but when you're playing this far behind, opportunities like this do not come up often. A 2-for-0 trade, and you're already stacked up on the left side of the map. You've already got crit in some of your builds. I believe Wind Demon finished up for Vaporish Coast, Rage, double stacked as you said. I feel like that is a major missed opportunity for the Ravens to at least put some pressure on the objective. Worst case scenario, Itori shows up, you reset, and you try and chase him out for the kill.
Now Atori abducted by Calvin. Plenty of health for Atori that Angry's got to work through, but 2 levels down on the Thoth. It's scale time now for Angry. Divine Ruin, Spear of Deso, so yeah, you've got Flat Pen, and the Tier 2 Ob Shard gives you a little % pen as well. So Angry will only get stronger as this game goes on, but Atori feels like already there. Yeah, I'm surprised. Look, I mean, the Wargs have played so fast, really around Worst Turtle. And you've got a very hefty gold lead. knock down a tier 1 tower in mid. Yeah, why not? Let's rotate over here towards left, see what we can get done. Forcing an ultimate out of Vapourish. Coast, though. Coast swinging away onto Worst Turtle. Gives the Highland Ravens Hunter the first, but Ollie answers back with the second.
Just great wherewithal from Coast to stick around in that fight, man. So many people are disengaging, like the Ravens would like to.
Angry gets the Scarab's Blessing, dashes away, and then Brutalize finishes off the kill. And Angry teleports on back towards Calvin.
Calvin would like to continue the chase, but not much to be had. 1-for-1 trade, jungle for ADC, and again, that bounty on Worst Turtle is just higher, so Vapourish Coast, now level 16, has caught up with the opposition and even slightly put himself ahead until Spuddy was able to clear out a couple more waves on the left-hand side. The Highland Ravens showing some fight back, even though the Golden Experience lead just continues to grow in favor of the Wargs.
Double Sonic Boom from Adapting. How about that initiation? Ollie abducted back towards mid, but a jump in and a stun gives Tori the kill. Both of these jungler Smith just running in and not winning their respective trades over the last couple of fights. Now Ollie needs to disengage, able to do so. Calvin, can he? Is the next question.
Good damage.
Angry. Final Judgment ready. We'll cancel it out. And now it's only a kill onto Adapting that the Niflheim Wargs have to show for it. But a Pyromancer stands. So we could see the first neutral objective of the game go down.
Pyromancer looked at. Worst Turtle takes a little bit of damage as well. Like what we saw from Coast, just sets up the trap on that slipstream in case Worst Turtle decides to TP through. Highland Ravens, significant grouping on the right-hand side, but again, not willing to pull out that objective. Adapting just now in the respawn probably informed that decision for the Highland Ravens. The Niflheim Wargs, on the other hand, gold lead continues to grow. They find their pick, they reset, and they've still got a good amount of resources left to play with at that. I would love to see the Wargs just continually force some fights. Group up as 5 and force the Ravens to show up to one of these POIs. Control the state of the map by generating threat on it. 4 people around the Pyromancer might be enough, but you got to pull it to make the Ravens step up.
Ollie does help the Niflheim Wargs in pulling the Pyro. Tori somewhat low on mana. So a small story that could make a difference, but the Wargs end up dropping the Pyromancer. Again, despite being over 4,000 gold ahead in this game, the Wargs slow playing around the objectives. I suppose when the damage dealers of the Ravens have been able to shred through your most fed targets, right? You're going to play a bit more cautious around the objectives because we know what Coast is able to do in the damage department. Angry, even at 1 and 3, has got a lot there as well. Haven't seen much Soul Myth, but with the, what'd you call it? Weird build.
It's a weird build.
Tori's done well, 302.
Yeah, not a whole lot of pressure put on him just yet. I mean, we've seen like 1 Sonic Boom connect, and that was within the last couple of minutes. Otherwise, Adapting, for the most part, has been looking at both of these side lanes, whereas Worst Turtle is kind of putting his pressure everywhere on the map. 6-3-2 for the Susano player, 8 of 10 affected kills. Tori gonna hit some pretty significant power spikes shortly, probably a Typhon's Fang in this next slot, get a little bit more lifesteal, a little bit more penetration as well, gonna really boost that power output. I am curious to see how the rest of this build starts to round out. Yet again, pull the objective. This time, maybe for free, unless Calvin and Vapourish Coast can get in quick.
Yeah, duo lane to the Ravens. Could have something to say about the objective, but a Ragnarok from Ollie will secure it.
No way.
No chance, right? Akana and Adapting rotate to the Fire Giant.
Turtle sees it.
Turtle sees it, dashes forward, Typhoon will fly out. And the quietest way that that engagement could have ended ends up happening. Heads up play by the Ravens just to check the response time of the Wargs, but Fire Giant stands.
I wonder, had the Ravens just pulled the Fire Giant instead, they likely would have gotten it. It was down about 50% HP. Starting with the Pyromancer, that probably would have saved him like 8-9 seconds. It would have been close.
Yeah.
Maybe even could have just been a steal from Worst Turtle in that situation, as he's got the hardest hitting ability at present around the objective. So good reset from the Highland Ravens, and in going for the Pyromancer, at least confirm something for themselves at low risk. But the risk being that the Wargs probably just going to do the objective on the other side as they did. Game resets back to neutral. The Wargs continue to nurse the exact same lead they've had for the last couple of minutes. Experience slightly extending in their favor again, but as we're approaching level 20, experience starts to mean less and less. You only tick over once, and Itori already there, Spudio already there as well, so a lot of that experience gap going to start to slowly close up as Angry is at level 17 and Vaporish Coast at 19. Means that this massive advantage that the Niflheim Wargs have been maintaining for the last 10 or so minutes is starting to slowly slip away as we get back to a neutral game state, a bit of parity on the map.
Kinda love to defend the blue buff here. The scaling starting to happen really for both of these squads. Haven't seen much from Spudio outside of an early assist over in that lane, but know what Hoyi can do later in the game. Great at scrapping. Now both hunters at level 20. So regardless of how bad the laning phase started, Spudio reaches level 20. Fully clean in the death column, nonetheless. Vaporish Coast is going to absolutely swing, and so will adapting with this crit. A couple spectrals there. Gem of ISO for Kazakhs could be annoying here, Miff, as we continue to round the builds. I won't get a chance, though, as Angry is jumped on. Scarab's Blessing on point from Calvin. That'll keep Angry on the map. Now Kana being run at by a few members of the Wargs. Typhoon flies in, and that'll shut down this RDO. Tori now with 4 kills.
Man, really good play from Worst Turtle there. I thought for sure he was going to use the ultimate to try and finish off the kill onto Angry, but instead rotates back and finds the guaranteed engage. With Beats and Aegis still on Angry and Kepri nearby, I suppose not a great kill opportunity. Maybe a kill opportunity now on the Calvin as he tries his best for the steal. Niflheim Wargs get it.
Yeah, you got to commit on that if you're the Wargs. Calvin, though, low. Vaporish Coast gets a kill. Tusky gets 3 stuns. So Ollie loses Fire Giant, but a kill plus a Fire Giant in exchange for your support dying is something the Wargs will take every day of the week.
So now the Wargs start to think about, hey, how strong is our initiation? How strong is our ability to get into these tier 2s, into these Phoenixes, and shut them down? As far as actually killing the structure, very high potential from the Niflheim Wargs. You've got a multi-hunter composition, a mage in the soul lane, which is going to put out pretty decent DPS. As far as soul laners are concerned, probably one of the higher DPS ones you can go towards. Any hunter or mage going to beat out a guardian or a warrior insofar as speed of clearing out one of these structures. But initiation is where they are going to struggle. The Niflheim Wargs have really only got the singular initiator on their team, Ollie on this Fenrir. Unchained can find maybe 1 or 2 consistently. Ragnarok only single target in nature for the CC. And the majority of beads still being available for the Highland Ravens means that you really only got the 1 target, Calvin, as of now. And if you're not picking up Calvin, and let's even pretend that all the other beads are down, you could just Scarab's Blessing him immediately, and all of a sudden Ragnarok gets no value. So a bit pigeonholed the Niflheim Wargs in their ability to initiate these fights. Doesn't really matter if there's no fight to be had. The Highland Ravens not exactly grouped up just yet to defend.
It's bold of you to assume, Miff, that the Wargs want any type of initiation that's not just running at the Ravens. You know, it seems like everyone has just walked at the Ravens at every point here this game. You're absolutely right as far as team fighting goes. But I think the mentality of the Wargs from minute 1 has just been, I'm going to walk at them. I can gap close. I don't have the best initiation, but hopefully I can deal more damage. And in most cases they have, but has been pushed back. From the Ravens, you can never count out Vaporish Coast, his ability to make plays, adapting, of course. A storied career, not getting back into competitive SMITE. Lots still to be had in this game as Ollie will take Tusky, but nothing comes of it. Calvin uses Scarab's Blessing on himself, and nearly gets gunned down by Tori, but a couple low health targets survive on both sides.
Getting Scarab's Blessing was the major contention point for the Niflheim Wargs. Now all of a sudden Ragnarok should be able to find some more value. That cooldown should be lower than what Calvin's bringing with Scarab's Blessing as well, so the Wargs can continue their siege. And they've been on a pretty good pace so far. Still a minute and a half to play with. As long as they can contend with this poke, re-engage. You're already halfway back to Ragnarok. Niflheim Wargs in a very good spot.
I was trying to figure out why, like, there's a human flopping around on the ground. I realize that's Kazakhs' zombie, I guess, from this skin. Calvin without Scarab's Blessing. Jumped on by Ollie, but adapting has found the backline, and Worth Turtle has found adapting. So a 2-for-1 trade, and the Niflheim Wargs have 4. Now pushing down the tier 2 tower in mid. Angry gets jumped on. No ultimates remaining for the Highland Ravens. Vaporish Coast low. Has to use the beads. Niflheim Wargs get exactly what they came for. Got about 40 seconds remaining on the Fire Giant buff. And the Highland Ravens might have one more chance here in this game.
push your gold lead up to 7,500, maybe 8,500 after the Pyromancer, maybe 10,000 after the Primal Fury. So the gold's certainly in an advantageous situation for Niflheim Wargs. Reset yourselves, get some wards, group up around the Fire Giant, force that exact same fight yet again. Weren't quite able to pick up a Phoenix for yourselves. The defense from the Highland Ravens, very well placed, adapting in particular, finding that priority trade with Worst Turtle. Very, very good at slowing down the Niflheim Wargs, had adapting either just not done that. He's very weak, Mercury that is, inside of Phoenix defense, and well, Worst Turtle very strong as he's got one of the highest AoE CC abilities available to the Niflheim Wargs. So, a good trade over to the Highland Ravens. Maintains their base, but still pretty long shot odds, I'd argue, around a neutral territory fight. You kind of have to show up to the Fire Giant, I think. Seeing how quickly those sieges were performed from the Niflheim Wargs, yeah, you don't want them getting a fire for themselves, potentially even an enhanced Fire Giant if they decide to wait it out about a minute.
So the regrouping of the Ravens has got to be well placed. Adapting has found the backline a couple of times, but has largely been left alone by the rest of the team. That is the ebb and flow of the Mercury, though. You get a Sonic Boom, but that means you're not where you want to be. Slight 1 versus 1 between the junglers over in mid. Worst Turtle wins that one, as Calvin now has to use the Scarab's Blessing, and 2 kills drop. The Niflheim Wargs have all 5 on the map, and wouldn't you guess it, Fire Giant's about to respawn. Angry's got to get something done here, but from range, unable to reach out and grab the Niflheim Wargs. So 1 versus 1 for Worst Turtle in mid, and then a pick on a Calvin for the Wargs.
And Worst Turtle looking not worse for the wear. Should be able to rotate through. Angry still playing incredibly far forward. The Highland Ravens realizing, even with 2 members dead, they can't let this Fire Giant go down for free. Not the highest steal potential, Angry. No ultimate available. Certainly if he had it, the Niflheim Wargs would have to put some respect on the steal potential of the Highland Ravens, especially considering it did 80% of Kha'Zix's HP. Fire Giant burning low. What are the Ravens up to?
Nothing. They're up to nothing. And they're up to dying. Angry, knocked up, then deleted by Angry. Kana left alone with 4. And Kana will drop to a Tori. Fire Giant on all 5 members of the Wargs, and the 0-4 EU SCC team is starting to roll over the Highland Ravens. And Myth, it looks like a relatively easy Phoenix siege over the horizon.
Yeah, nobody here to defend. Adapting might be able to line up a pretty high priority ultimate, but he's over on the red buff, not even at the Phoenix right now, so no presence from him. They're walking into the Titan room. Adapting's got to get back.
Worst Turtle won't be able to stop Adapting's back. Ollie abducted, but won't reach the fountain. Now Titan being sieged by the Niflheim Wargs. Empty the Crypts is down, so is the Sonic Boom. But Adapting hasn't found a kill on the back of this fight. Calvin abducts Ollie, but the Titan is going to get shredded, and the Niflheim Wargs strike first. They grab game 1 over the Highland Ravens.
Just constant action, right? The early game was fight after fight after fight, but even in even trades, we were about, what, 7 minutes in, the slash lines were 3-3. Every single time the Wargs were pushing their lead further and further, whereas the Highland Ravens, specifically Adapting, was falling super far behind in that jungle. Worst Turtle just got the better end of this matchup.
Myth, that felt like an uncharacteristic game from both teams. The Wargs look flawless, and the Ravens, outside of some early game kills, couldn't get momentum going. Don't expect that to, I do expect that, oh my goodness, to maybe change up some going into game number 2, which will be right after this break. And it is the Niflheim Wargs, a team that is 0-4 in their sets, take game one over the Highland Ravens, and it was an onslaught of damage. Worst Turtle was active from the first few levels of this game. Atori was scaling up nicely on the Soul, and the interesting team composition works out for the Wargs, grabs game one over the Highland Ravens. In MIF, I think in this case, interesting actually ends up being a good thing. And the Wargs, they throw an Opwash over in solo. We get a Soul mid. Actually very strange given what we've seen lately as far as the meta goes, but it works here in game one.
Yeah, I think that style of draft where you really are just all in on the full engage, we're going to go all damage, we don't need any initiators, no tanks, we're going to be just fine. That style of play is facilitated by the jungle selection of the Highland Ravens. Had they just had someone that can get involved early, an Osiris, an Erlong Shen, even a Nemesis, it's pretty likely that Adapting would have just rotated over and controlled this Opwash. It's pretty likely that he could have got over towards that dual lane and made use of the fact that Ollie fell down twice for first and second blood before he even ticks over to level 3. But because Adapting is playing this late game slanted hyper carry that really needed some time to roll through, it allowed the Niflheim Wargs to just farm up throughout the early, get past those contention points, get past those early parts where not having any defense is really going to make you struggle, and instead leveraged it for a pretty nice lead for themselves. And then, as you said it perfectly, they won these team fights just with damage. It was a DPS race in every single exchange they took, and when you've just got more DPS characters, you're probably going to win those.
Maybe I am qualified to have an opinion.
That's what I've been saying, man.
All right, so every once in a while I hit. Not often, but this was maybe one of them. 5-0-3 for Atori, 9-4-4 for Worst Turtle. Adapting, I mean, Coast had some moments in this game. Really felt like Adapting was a lot of the kill pressure. Later on, I think Angry was shut down very nicely. I think that's maybe what's mostly impressive here for the Niflheim Wargs is that Angry on the Thaw. Think back to phases of past. Angry has gone near entire phases with minimal pressure being put on the mid lane, minimal deaths, and so any individual game where Angry is left at like 1-4, something like that, I think a great look. Though just prior to break, I fumbled over my words about 1 million times, but my point was that I don't expect, you can't expect game 2 to look much like that for the Highland Ravens specifically. I think the Wargs have the ability to play like that again. Miff, I think the Highland Ravens too good a squad to kind of just get run over in the way they did over again here in game 2.
Yeah, and Adapting's been playing this game at the highest level for a very long time. And one of the major tools you start to establish throughout your tenure in SMITE is identifying the issue. Anything that we saw, Adapting saw twice, and then some other details about it as well. So if I'm thinking early game pressure needs to be addressed for the Highland Ravens, I'm thinking Adapting's probably going to figure that out himself too.
I wonder if picks and bans end up looking a lot different for the Ravens in this game, because the Ravens had a very standard composition, all things considered, in game number 1. Niflheim Wargs did not. And the picks that were held behind early ended up really scaling nicely for the Niflheim Wargs. I mean, think of the Fenrir 0-2 over the course of like a couple of minutes, and you asked for him to just sit back, farm up, wait for the mid game, and that's exactly what happened. Now, there was a lot of late game scaling banned out in game number 1. The Kali, the Xing Wei, the Huang was all taken away. So bans-wise, things looking actually very similar here. I don't know if there's much, I mean, because if you're the Ravens, you're not banning like a Susano, right? I mean, it's hard
I might
in the current meta to want to take those away when the current bans are on the table, and Nemesis ends up being the third and final ban for the Highland Ravens, and the Wargs will take away the Uller yet again here, Miff, and also the Robin. So will remain the exact same. Do the Ravens go back to the Mercury, though? That's the big question.
I'm thinking you probably just don't, right? I would like to see just the high-pressure junglers. There's a reason the SPL are playing like the same gods every single game. Osiris, Erlong Shen, still both available, still both incredibly strong, have great flex potential, solo, jungle, even support to a certain extent. High pressure builds really do favor them right now as well. Just feels crazy to me that anybody's willing to overlook those style of picks.
Yeah.
But Freya, first overall for the Ravens, one that I can get behind. A god that's got very high damage output. Her early game's really been shored up most recently. Zapman saying, hey, she's a threat from minute 1. And I tend to agree, but you still can't overlook the fact that at minute 30, she's also just probably the biggest threat, or one of the largest threats you could hope for in SMITE.
Yeah, a lot of that with AMC as well. I mean, AMC plus Freya is your first 2 picks. That is a strong, strong look for the Ravens as this game goes on. Plus a Khepri, just to be obnoxious, Scarab's Blessing, and all of the additional setup that Khepri provides. I love what the Ravens have drafted in their first 3. I'm trying to remember if Freya was even picked or banned in game number 1.
Good luck.
Obviously not picked. Banned couldn't be me. Kronos. Now that's an interesting pick, Myth. Kronos is super interesting right now.
Yeah, look, of the magical hunters, Kronos seems to be the last one to rejoin the meta, and he is certainly one of them. When I think of magical hunters in SMITE that are like good right now, Freya #1, Olorun #2, and then Sol and Kronos a little bit further behind. Kronos even further behind than Sol. But really did think once we saw the 9-5 changes, like I was personally thinking to myself, yeah, Kronos is probably on the way back. The game has slowed down. The builds are starting to favor him a little bit more. You're almost guaranteed to take over the level 20 if you are willing to dictate that pace of play. So Kronos, not the worst selection, but will put a massive target on his back. Does have some early game presence now from the jungle of the Ravens. Kronos will struggle a whole lot until Rewind is available, and even then, you've only got Rewind like once every 160 or so seconds. So, just not a pick that I was expecting to see, but certainly one that can work.
Yeah, I could say that about Thanatos as well. I mean, I suppose there is counter potential to the Khepri res, but I'm assuming between a Kleena and a Bellona, we've already seen who the jungler is going to be. Now a Susano is in there as well. This is a tough one to decipher here, Myth. Maybe Opwash support?
No way. Kleena jungle. Oh man, you might just be right. If I had to choose a support out of all of them,
yeah,
I'm probably
Bellona
going
support?
with Bellona.
Yeah, Bellona support.
Just anyone that's got like consistent CC, and that's the only one.
Let's solve this puzzle. Let's go into game number 2 and see where the Wargs are putting all of these picks. All right, so we said unique in game 1, and it ended up working out. I'll stick with interesting for not only the picks, but the
But I broke down earlier what interesting means.
It means something to you, Myth. To me,
to casters.
Sometimes.
That's right.
I can't play my hand. I'm just saying it's interesting. It is indeed Bellona support and Kleena ADC. I thought we were going to see something else in mid. Tori was going to be over in the dual lane, but no, Bellona plus Kleena. So a double melee dual lane here, Myth. What do you think? Break it down for me. How excited are you for the Wargs duo?
I mean, I'm pretty excited. I feel like that's a high pressure dual lane.
I'm amped, Dave. Thanks.
Yeah. I think it is certainly something similar to what like the Tartarus Titans were running, in that it's just a whole lot of pressure in the dual lane with this Bellona over there, or maybe pressure in mid. Adapting's played a whole lot of Thanatos in his time. Tori is certainly going to struggle, but maybe a turnaround potential. Adapting loses out on the beads. My bad, man. I like did your job there. I thought the fight was over, but they are just scrapping in the center of the map. Yeah, as far as the dual lane is concerned, first 2 levels probably just going to really favor the Highland Ravens. After that, levels like 4 through 15 probably in favor of the Wargs, depending on how adept Spudio is at playing this Kleena. If I had to see this dual lane again, I would switch them. I would have the Bellona be the ADC and then make Kleena support.
Yeah.
Just because of that 1v1 potential that Bellona brings, especially into a Freya.
Well, think about the length of her chain, right?
It is long. Ollie, do the Scourge. Oh, he doesn't have it.
Nah, he's dashing in. He's dashing in. He's fighting. And look at Spudio. He's just back farming up Harpies. He's unconcerned. And why would he be? Ollie has taken next to no damage and Banish. Doesn't even hit. So the Niflheim Wargs throw us for a bit of a loop. Worst turtle back on the Susano. There's something real to what's the word? I was gonna say grab our teeth onto, but that's not the right word. What sink our teeth into? Yeah, I forgot the saying.
Wow.
I forgot the saying.
It is early on the 7th.
It is 11:51.
Look, I try to bail you out, man.
We are close to noon. No, I don't get a bailout on this one. Worst turtle back on the Susano, and I do think Thanatos brings an interesting dynamic to this game. If we already saw how powerful early, just that big chunk damage that adapting is able to do. But I think, you know, with the semi-global presence of finishing off kills you felt like was an issue for the Ravens in Game 1, maybe adapting shores up some of that here in Game 2.
You know, in SMITE, a lot of ability names like I tend to disagree with, right? Like I'm thinking to myself, why are these abilities called this? It's not really indicative of like what they're doing. Man, the second ability for Osiris, I think just not the best name on the planet, and so I've washed it from my brain. But Adapting's first ability is called Death Sight, and that just makes perfect sense, right? Because that's what it does.
Oh, that's it.
That's it.
All right, man. Appreciate it. Spirit Flail, by the way. Kha'Zix now being ganked by Adapting. The stun will connect because there's no beads for Kha'Zix. And the silence and the stun and the damage, and Adapting picks up the first kill. Worst Turtle, though, trying to pull back Kana, but a stun connects onto Adapting nonetheless. Adapting worked down by the minions. And so similar to Game 1. Both junglers over on right, and both junglers with a kill.
Getting involved real early on. Blink expended from Worst Turtle, so going to be a little while until he can engage yet again. Spirit Flail lands from Osiris. I would call it Speed Boost, personally. Like, that's what I would call the second ability.
What?
Yeah, Speed Boost, like the capital O's. Because it makes you go faster.
Yeah, I guess. All right.
Well, no, it does. You don't have to guess.
Well, I know, but I'm guessing about your ability name. I'm saying, yeah, I guess. Like, I guess that works.
Speed Boost Strike, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Speed Boost Strike. That definitely rolls off the tongue better than Spirit Flail.
I'm glad you think so, too.
Spirit Flail is like smooth velvet when I say it, you know?
No, I don't know.
Speed Boost Strike. God, dude, my tongue is all twisted around.
Speed Boost Strike.
Oh, double stun! You don't get a chance to talk, Myth. It's a double stun from Ollie, and Spuddio has gotten the kill, and the dual lane suddenly erupts into fire. And the Niflheim Wargs have added another. This time it's Spuddio, and that sudden initiation just caught the Ravens off guard.
And that's really all there was to it. They're standing on tower line. Eagles rallies there, and it just connects. Easy setup. Spuddio lines up his ultimate, tears the veil. Calvin not even allowed to channel Scarab's Blessing, and a swift pickup for the Niflheim Wargs. But not to be the bearer of bad news, because I'm gonna be, but not to be. You're still behind in gold. I think experience still might slightly be favoring the Niflheim Wargs, but as far gold is the more important of the two at this phase of the game. 2-1. It's as if the Highland Ravens had gotten first blood for themselves, and nothing has happened since then. That's what the gold looks like.
I was wondering if we would see Adapting put pressure on Atori throughout this laning phase. No mana left for Atori. Abduct, Root, all of it missing, and Ollie will walk away just fine on this Bellona. I'm sure what happened to Coast. Maybe purple buff happened to Coast. Picks it up, but we'll head on back just fine anyway. I was wondering if Adapting was going to start to put pressure over towards Atori. I guess there is safety in the kit. Say what you will about Chronosmith, but between the rewind and beads picked up, could be hard to finish off some of those low health kills.
Yeah, but someone's got to do it, and you have to force those resources or they'll always be up, right? It's saying, hey, they've got beads, so I don't want to CC him, is saying, hey, I'll never CC him, or hey, he's got rewind, I can't kill him, means that I suppose you don't try, and it just never happens.
Defeatist attitudes around here, you know?
I'm so sick of these doomers, man.
Get up and do the work. That's what Ollie's doing. He's dunking into mid. Then the Scarab's Blessing is out and Adapting, wouldn't you guess it? Gets a kill onto Worst Turtle. Rewind forced by Atori. Hovering Death. All right, dunk's down in the deck. I was hoping for a dunk in, but I think Hovering Death ability-wise,
another one, yeah.
That's on point.
Yeah, wait. Is it Death Scythe, Scent of Death, and Hovering Death?
Death Scythe, Scent of
Scent
Death.
Of Death. What's the third?
Hovering Death.
No, wait, it's Death Silence. Stop speaking of
Soul
death.
Reap.
Wow,
Oh,
way
man.
to break the motif. Another one that needs to be worked on.
No, otherwise, if you're reaping souls, you're talking. That's death in a way.
Yeah, Death Reap.
God bless. I'm not casting with you later, am I?
No,
Oh,
no, you're all right, bud. I'm sorry.
I get one out. As if I haven't also derailed us numerous times. Let's talk about that fight in mid, though, Myth, because a much different start to this game for Adapting. Where Game 1, he was sitting on one kill for a while, and the Mercury just Never really got off the ground. I'm sorry, adapting. That one's my bad. He was backing, and then it got caught. And Ollie and Worst Turtle lay the trap, and the Niflheim Wargs have added a kill on the Thanatos.
Adapting's still not in a poor position. 2-2, still equal in level. Should be able to tie up a bit of that gold disparity. Hydra Star starting to get looked at as well. He's actually ahead in gold. So falling down there, of course, not ideal, but still in a pretty good position. How do you feel about Hydra Star, man?
I hate it. I love it as a stat stick. Let me meme for just a bit, game. Let me meme for a bit, but no, Calvin and Vaporsh Ghost, they got to initiate.
And own.
And own. And now Spudio drops. Spudio picks up Soul Eater first, and an extra death headed out of lane.
Yeah, I liked what we saw there from Spudio. Tries to return some damage for the healing so that he could walk into the wall. Unfortunately, Valkyrie's discretion just keeps him within that 20% threshold, so no access to clean his passive. Makes it a very easy lineup for Vaporsh Coast. Now Ollie pulled out, but this is why I said we probably want to see Ollie for the ADC be the Bellona. That 1v1's pretty good.
Wow, Typhoon charged up. Adapting has dodged a lot. And Worst Turtle will at least be able to escape with his life. I like the pressure I'm seeing Adapting start to put out here. Because so often you'll see the Thanatos wait for execute range, rewind used by Atori. He'll get out safely. Sometimes you'll see Thanatos wait until like there's an execute target and use that just to secure the kills over and over. But Adapting has used it for rotation, for initiation, and I think it's looked all right.
For survivability as well. I mean, that fight starts off with Worst Turtle trying to initiate onto Adapting. Adapting heads up in the air, says, all right, I'll land when my scythe is back up, and that's exactly what he did. Was nearly able to pick up a return kill himself, but ultimate available to Susano does force the disengage from Adapting. Ollie, they're in some trouble.
Stinger onto Ollie. Angry would love to go back and pick it up. We'll be able to.
So we will.
And he goes and grabs it. Reset the cooldown just a bit. So a relatively low-cost initiation. As Myth, surprisingly enough, the Bellona support hasn't been run over at this point in this game. You know, you mentioned the first couple levels might be rough, but now Ollie just roaming around, dropping the Eagles Rally. Gauntlet of Thieves going to help out in the utility department. Vaporsh Coast in a bit of trouble here. Misses the vanish. Gets into Valkyrie's discretion. Sends some tennis balls towards Worst Turtle, and beads used, but probably not needed. Spudio grabs the kill on the Vaporsh Coast thanks to the gank.
Looks like red buff invade successful for the Niflheim Wargs as well. Itori and Ollie on the rotation out. Wargs have got really good objective control. They've got phenomenal, secure, probably strongest on the map being Worst Turtle's ultimate. Your burn potential between Itori and Spudio incredibly high. This early on and playing into a deficit, maybe not an ideal situation to look towards the gold period, but over the course of the next 4 to 5 minutes, could be a good target.
Adapting up! Makes it out of the Typhoon just barely.
You willed him out of there. the candor of your voice.
Rise!
Avoid that tornado!
And he did it! And he lives on the back end, but Worst Turtle getting the better damage-wise of that 1v1 at the moment. Finishes off Crusher, Brawler's Beat Stick despite a 1-level deficit. And Myth Atori is still left. Triple goose eggs over in mid. Have seen the rewind forced a couple of times, yes, but has maintained some relative safety. And it looks like more mage style of build. Do more to start into what has often been a Warlock staff. And so no rings just yet for the Chronos.
Yeah, I've been, for Itori, he's been getting on the receiving end of a whole lot of, oh, we got it. Oh, we got his beads, that's enough. Oh, we got his ultimate, that's enough. If you want to shut down a Chronos or any god that's got this level of safety, it's not about just removing the relics. I know that's what we were talking about earlier. Someone's got to get rid of the relics. You got to keep working, man, until you finish them at least one time. But so far, triple goose eggs and a level lead, a slight advantage to Itori, is the opposite of what the Ravens would want. All right, well, someone could force him. We stopped his back.
Auto attack, stop the back. Stinger, rewind. There we go. We willed that into existence too, Myth. We have just like, what's not omnipotence, but
bias?
No, like us like willing things to happen in the game. Is that omnipotence?
Well, when you will something to happen, I mean, like, omnipotence is like complete control of everything.
Okay, yeah, that's not us, but like 1 degree less than that is what we're looking at adapting with the rest of his squad. Right, yeah, right.
The
all
complete knowledge of everything that's going to happen?
All right, no, we're not getting into this. Angry with Scarab's Blessing can take this fight against Worst Turtle, but not Brock. Eagles Rally doesn't get the stun, and Calvin abducts Ollie back. Wow, good disengage there to keep Angry on the map. So again, the Highland Ravens now starting to pull back some of this kill pressure. 1 extra kill for the Highland Ravens as Kha'Zix on the Sopwash Soul has been jumped on.
And some significant power spikes starting to be hit as well. Angry finished up the Crusher, so his damage output much higher now. Looks like adapting probably going for a Blood Forge. Red buff invade seems to have been successful. Ollie picks this one up, but at what cost? Vaporish Coast nearby.
It is an abduct, but Tori actually not taking that much damage. Nice stun on the Vaporish Coast. Valkyrie's discretion up. And a rewind out from a Tori, but a Tori
slow.
Now caught between a few. The Aegis doing serious work, but an execute down from adapting for the first time this game. And a Tori in the last couple minutes, man, almost as if we've willed it into happening, has now died a couple of times.
He has. No beads for a minute, no Aegis for 2, and Itori's ultimate down as well. Gotta be making use of these opportunities. Gotta continually find that kill. I know he's already at 0-2 and he's not exactly a high value pick anymore. The bounty, the literal golden experience you gain for shutting down Itori, not as high as it once was, but the value you get to your team of just slowing them down, still certainly there. Spuddio able to make his way into the wall, and Vaporish Coast has no way to interact with that, so decides to walk himself out. And the Highland Ravens extend their gold lead yet again, and continue to do so now around the Pyro.
Yeah, this is a smart call by the Highland Ravens. So 1,200 gold will grow up just a bit. I think Vaporish Coast on the Freya tennis skin might have one of the most satisfying auto attack sounds I've maybe ever heard. Like the real nice tennis ball thud every single auto attack. I think might be my favorite skin auto sound ever. But as I've so often been, Miff, I've been cut off by action, and adapting has another. And I love what we're seeing from the jungle this game. The ability to rotate through a little bit more clear, and don't need the sightline with the Sonic Boom, and I think it's made a big difference for adapting here in this game. Going to continue to. An abduct onto Kha'Zix, and another one for the Thanatos.
6-2 now for the Thanatos, really starting to become massive. Has massive pressure on the map. Speaking of pressure, Spuddio on the receiving end of it yet again, forced into the exact same wall. Vaporish Coast can't interact with it, so he does not. Angry, wishing he didn't have any interaction right now. He's trying to get back towards his own tower. Should be able to resustain.
Vaporish Coast. I'll just let the autos speak for themselves.
They couldn't hear my...
See what I mean?
That's whack, man.
What?
Aphrodite witch skin, you throw the cat at the wall and it goes meow as it like slides down the wall. That's good.
Autos are great from Vaporish Coast, who grabs the 1v1 over Spuddio. Use the Aegis. Spuddio had to use the Aegis as well, but Vaporish Coast wins it, and so the Freya grabs a kill, starts to scale up nicely.
Buccaneath?
Listen,
that's like a literal gun.
You're telling me that is not one of the best auto attack sounds in the game?
One of these, sure.
So everyone go buy that skin. If you want to listen to it on your own computer. You know what I mean?
Or hop on the wiki. I think there's sound effects in there too.
Come on, I'm selling stuff here. Highland Ravens pull themselves even further ahead. About 3.5, closing in on 4,000 in the experience well on their side as well. You know what it is, Miff? I think I'm so, and I genuinely mean this, and I promise I'm going to root this in some analytics. I think I'm so used to, this is going to happen again, as Calvin finds an initiation on the Worst Turtle. My goodness, between a Stinger and a Thanatos that was 6-2. No chance for Worst Turtle to live. Now 7-2 for adapting. Ollie nearly caught out in mid as well. They just non-stop are the Highland Ravens. I think I'm just used to the EU SEC games being so slow up to this point in the game, right? Comparatively. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying the pace of those games is so much more objective, farm-minded. 14 kills in 17 minutes is like unheard of. And so times that I've normally been able to meme, haven't been able to. As Kana rotates over from solo lane, a Lord of the Afterlife dunks onto Ollie, where his hovering death go. Down onto one, and Ollie is executed. Atori is stunned. Rewind has already been expended by Atori. Beads and Aegis also gone, and that is where the chase of a Porsche Coast will fall. Angry grabs the second of the fight for the Highland Ravens. And there's a Gold Fury around the corner. The Highland Ravens running away with game 2 in the first 20 minutes.
Yeah, the combo is so clear. Just Stinger into Death Scythe and good luck surviving it. Spuddy on Worst Turtle, best of luck on the steal.
Worst Turtle, yeah, not only are you not going to steal, you're going to die as well. In the wall is Spuddy. That has forced the reset from the rest of the Highland Ravens. Banish onto Spuddy.
Where'd he go?
And adapting is unstoppable. 7 straight kills, 9, 2, and 3. Our man's got Bloodforge as well. The Highland Ravens, Nif, are in the driver's seat handedly in game number 2. And all of these picks just get better. You got an AMC, a Freya. Although I don't know, my data on late game Thanatos is pretty limited, Nif.
Used to be Thanatos, fell off pretty significantly, but how Scent of Death works, so much percentage penetration on it, percentage HP damage from Death Scythe as well. He won't have the same level of one-shot that we're seeing right now, but still certainly able to get active on the map, especially with this build. Bloodforge just gives you such a safety net. Start off a fight with an execute, all of a sudden you're starting a fight with a mini Nike ultimate as well. It just really does help out a fair bit. But looking at the level disparities, 3 levels up on his direct opposition, Worst Turtle, highest level on the Niflheim Wargs being at 16, still 2 below. Adapting, we're a ways off from even discussing that fall-off potential.
Right.
We might not even get there if this pace continues.
Well, the Highland Ravens have the ability to continue that pace. Calvin does not have Scarab's Blessing, but does have enough tankiness. And there's just not enough damage from the Niflheim Wargs to grab the kill onto Calvin. Would have been a nice pick, especially if you could have baited in a few more members of the Highland Ravens. But Calvin survives. Calvin gets abducted, and Ollie now down. Seems like one by one, the Highland Ravens just keep finding these initiations. Kepri as well. I think we've talked a lot about adapting and the rotations through from Hovering Death. Love what I've seen from Calvin so far here in game number 2. The roots, the initiates, the abducts, all of it. Feels like it's been there and really given the Ravens a leg up.
Yeah, he is just always connecting with that hard CC, always ready with that ultimate as well. Pyromancer pulled out by the Highland Ravens and should go down with very little fight back from the Wargs. Only one in range, and he's spotted out now. Kha'Zix walks up, watch the Pyromancer fall, and then turns on his heel. Fire Giant won't be too far behind it if we don't see any defense soon.
Literal no damage, though, into the Fire Giant. Kha'Zix chunked down just a bit, empty the crypts used. The Porsche Coast is here. This is a full 5-man engage onto the Fire Giant by the Highland Ravens.
The Wargs are going the other way.
I was going to say, the Wargs in their body language now tells you about all you need to know. We're going to farm up red buff on both sides. We just don't want to take the fight. Now might be the right call, Myth. I mean, maybe you're hoping for a steal if you're the Wargs, but how wide the gold gap is in this game, there's no chance you're winning just a full 5-on-5 team fight. You lose there, you might just lose the game.
Yeah, I'm thinking Fire Giant plus 11k lead with 3 tier 2 towers still standing to push your lead, and based off map state, probably fall back to that Primal Fury after the tier 2s. You're in a much better position actually defending the Fire Giant, just because are you really showing up to the tier 2 tower?
Here's the thing. Either you can lose the Fire Giant anyway,
yep,
and at least still be on the map to maybe defend a Phoenix.
But you're not.
Or you can defend the Fire Giant, and you're going to lose that fight and lose the Fire Giant anyway. At least in this case, they didn't lose a team fight, right?
Yeah.
But the argument is that you didn't even take the chance to take away the Fire Giant.
Take away the Fire Giant, slow down the power play, potentially get it for yourselves, you know. I just don't think this is your highest return odds for the Niflheim Wargs. They had a much better likelihood of just forcing a coin toss than they do winning out in the true 5-on-5 engagement, or even what is more likely, the 4-1 split with Adapting acting as solo agent in the mid. Just because of the gold lead as it is, the itemization as it is, just really all favoring the Highland Ravens, now with Fire Giant as well. Calvin can do this because what's he concerned about? You're not even going to get through his HP shield.
That health shield, you're right. The health shield! The health shield! Oh, nice. Spuddy got the health shield down, but 2 kills from the Ravens. They're the price that you will pay. Adapting, why not? Blink forward.
Wow, he's winning that.
Who?
Yeah.
Spuddy?
No, Adapting.
Yeah, Adapting wins that Bloodforge. will give Adapting a nice shield as 10 kills on the board for the Highland Ravens. Kana running down Kha'Zix in solo. 22, can the Ravens just end the game now? Calvin is gonna drop Scarab's Blessing on himself. Calvin being worked down by the Titan. Atori respawns. Well, there was just too much on the Highland Ravens in 23 minutes. Take game number 2. Send us on to a game 3. And I'm not kidding, Nif. I'm just not used. Even North America, I'm saying Smite in general at the moment.
Post 9-5 Smite, we're not seeing 22
That's unheard of. The Dragons did it like once. And
they're the Dragons.
And they are the Jade Dragons.
The Jazzberry Jammers.
The Jazzberry Jammers. The Ravens, if able to grab a win here. Just no pushback, it felt like, from the Wargs in this game.
Yeah, just no defense around the Fire Giant, no grouping on your own Phoenix. You're getting caught out randomly on the map. Just really strange ends. Like the last 3 minutes of that game, just it seemed like the Wargs lost all the wind in their sails.
Here's the good news, Miff. We have a little bit of time to sit back, collect ourselves, and break down game number 2 coming up next. To a game 3 we go. It's the Highland Ravens who get us there, because in game number 2, my goodness, this one not particularly close. After the first couple of minutes, the Highland Ravens get their kills in the right spot. And Adapting, you wanted them back in competitive Smite. This is why Adapting on the Thanatos ends this game at 10-2. A ridiculous look for the Highland Ravens. And the rest of the map, not much better for the Niflheim Wargs. And the Highland Ravens with momentum now push us on to a game number 3. And Miff, so a unique style of composition, and I'll say that for the Ravens, and an interesting composition for the Wargs, get us on to a game 3.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the complete analysis of game 2 can begin and end with, hey, Adapting remembered that he's the king. He remembered that he's King Kennet and decided that he was sick of losing, because that's really what it seemed like, just active all the way across the map. If game 1 was massive jungle diff, and I'd argue it was, game 2 was similarly massive jungle diff that ended in a much quicker fashion. The Highland Ravens, once they felt confident in their ability to take neutral objectives, continued to do so with wild abandon. Weren't really overly concerned about what the Wargs were up to, and the Wargs weren't up to a whole lot. And then eventually all this lead and domination culminates in the final 3 minutes of this match, where the Niflheim Wargs were completely checked out. No defense around the Fire Giant, no defense in a tower, no defense in a Phoenix. Instead, Fire Giant goes down for free, a couple of easy picks onto the Wargs, and the Highland Ravens start to run away with it from there. But the Wargs have been playing for a very long time. Similarly to the credo I had given over to Adapting on the other side, I think the Wargs are a very capable team of figuring out exactly where things went wrong and how to address them. I don't think you could pick up 3 lanes that all lose out on pressure against a high-pressure jungler. You just got to find somewhere you can play through.
Right, because you're not going to, again, I don't think you ban out of Thanatos. Maybe you do if it was that good of a performance. 10-2, as I've mentioned, 19,000 damage, good for top in the game. Angry, put out a lot. Fate Porsche Coast really caught up here in this game as well. I mean, I guess the question is, do you draft your lanes to be a bit higher pressure if you're going to let something like a Thanatos roll through? Or do you just ban out those higher pressure junglers if you're going to end up picking lanes that roll that way? The Wargs show us a lot in game number 1, and I think strategy-wise, that's something they could maybe reach back to, look at. Game number 2, I think we move on from that strategy. Picks and bans for game number 3. We'll reveal the strategy, though. And I like the mindset of the Highland Ravens. I think that's a team in game 2 who remembered, okay, we're a good squad here. It's a competitive EU SEC. You know, this is a matchup we should be favored in, and they played with a bit of momentum going into that game. Wouldn't be surprised if we see the same 6 sort of later game scaling picks, which is banned, which is interesting, Myth, because we have just not had long games in this set. We have been 25 minutes, 23 minutes. We have not gotten to scale, really, as this set has gone on.
Yeah, I mean, why even aim for scaling, right? All your favorite scaling gods have been banned out every single game so far this set. So instead, a little bit more emphasis on the early game, I suppose, makes a good deal of sense. Some notable picks that I think have been a bit ignored so far this set. Of course, the Osiris and the Erlong. We got an Osiris in the previous match. But also the Yamoja, still incredibly popular, one that I'd expected to see a fair deal more. I know it's not exactly these two teams, but certainly at least Spudio, very capable of playing things like the Heimdall, which should be able to match up and survive against this highly aggressive Freya that we've seen twice now go over to Vaporish Coast. Instead, Xbalanque? This high in your draft? Are you worried that's getting banned? If you wanted Xbalanque, you're gonna get him regardless. It's just gonna happen. You could have got that like 5th overall and now not given the Ravens essentially a 10-minute heads up to plan your draft around these 2 picks. Because like, even Wool to a certain extent, in the North American SEC and the SPL, sure, a much more contested pick. But over here in the EU SEC, Amuz and Cobb is the cream of the crop. The Wargs just go to a very strange top 2. Not as strange that the gods are bad. The gods are certainly good.
How about a top 3, Myth? How about a strange, how about an interesting top 3 from the Niflheim Wargs, huh?
That's bad. That's not interesting, that's bad.
That's why I said interesting.
Understood. Charybdis now as well. You've got some defense shred to help out with your triple hunter composition, but like...
Remember that...
Why?
What we mentioned with, it's the last game. I will say this, and I don't mean to insinuate, but
yeah, please don't.
Like you get run down in game 2. It's the last game of the phase. You're 0-4. There's no hope for you to break into the top 4 of the EU SEC. Let's throw something interesting out there and just see what sticks,
Quad
have some
fizz?
fun, see if we can end up taking a game off the Ravens. Myth, you are pressed,
I
though. You
will
are
illuminate this
unhappy.
battlefield.
Look, there's only two things in Smite that inspire joy in me, and it's the community when they're happy. You know, easy to be happy when the community's happy.
So you never like the community.
And getting dubs. All right, those are the two things that are fun for me in Smite. And I'm just not certain that 50% of that is available to you with this Wargs draft. The community might be happy. They might love that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy. Again, I like the new style.
I just don't think that gets dubs.
All right, so that is the most... Do you classify yourself as a Zoomer, a Gen Zer, Myth?
Well, I am literally from that generation, yes.
Right, but like mentally, did you...
I would say like geriatric Zoomer. I've got a lot in common with millennials as well.
Looking at a draft
Yeah.
in your workplace,
Yeah.
and you're live on broadcast, and you look
Yeah.
at a draft and say, I don't think that gets dubs.
Dude,
Might be the most Zoomer take.
this Ravens draft hits dingers, all right? This Wargs
Big
draft,
Al.
no dubs,
Is that
bro.
Big Al versus... I don't know if there were any bad interviews from the Little League World
These guys
Series,
hit
but
nukes, man.
it's Big Al versus the non-dub takers in game number 3. Like, all expectations have to be with the Highland Ravens. And remember, the Highland Ravens have standings to play for here, wanting to separate themselves from the Styx Ferrymen, potentially tying things up with the Aru Scorpions. And now these drafts will break down
It's
just a
Nuwa
bit.
solo?
Well, Kha'Zix hasn't... He's played Applash twice. I don't know why you're surprised that it's still a mage.
Well, I just saw the Nike, and I was thinking to myself, almost certainly that's going over the solo lane.
What is that?
What is what?
Is that Bugs Bunny? Was it?
I suppose.
I guess.
I've had some carrot juice today.
Would you have rather had Nuwa support?
No. No, this draft just doesn't get dubs, man. This draft just doesn't get dubs.
Up against the Ravens, who are hitting dingers. I mean, adapting is on Osiris this game, Myth, and the conversation was lanes that don't get pressure versus a high-pressure jungler. All right, Spuddy's got some damage for Calvin. He'll let him know what's up.
Yeah, he landed like 9 out of 10.
Do you think we're in an environment again where the Wargs could lose pressure and adapting is in a spot where he can take advantage of that?
No shot the Wargs lose pressure in the duo lane at least. Piercing auto attacks plus a Nike. You should be able to out-clear pretty consistently. Oh, actually in a bit of trouble here. Horrific Emblem doing a whole lot of work.
Ollie low, but Vaporage Coast and Calvin unable to finish off the kills. Instead, a bit more focused on farming up the lane. Seems like we're just in for some high-octane smite between these two teams. Wargs throw caution to the wind, jump in, have some fun. The Highland Ravens fall prey to that in game 1, able to capitalize on that in game number 2. And in game number 3, Myth, the momentum still, not the momentum, the aggression, the pressure, still hitting in a very similar way. Don't often get to see Mage versus Warrior solo lanes, but we've gotten a few of those. Feels like Khan has dealt with them just fine. The Outwash didn't get much done, needed some help from adapting, but from that point on, felt all right. So Kha'Zix, of course, with range and clear, might be able to make life uncomfortable for Kana.
Yeah, should be able to have an advantage in the lane for the first couple of levels, but once Kana finishes off this first katana, we're going to hit a massive inflection point in the lane where just Kha'Zix is going to really struggle to just stand nearby. The damage output that you have Golden Blade is so high for Amaterasu, plus self-sustain from that first ability, and CC immunity in the ultimate means that Kha'Zix really won't have the same poke potential that we've been seeing.
Looking like Calvin and Vaporage Coast looking for the one fatal hammer on the Spuddyy or Ollie, but hasn't quite hit its mark here just yet. Watch, Myth, after 25-minute game 1, 23-minute game 2, this is the one that goes like 45-50 between these two teams. And
We're in for a treat either
well,
way.
that's, look, again, as a caster, it's totally thrown me off. Calvin, Horrific Emblem. Onto him, he is slowed. Gotta be a first kill here. Knock up, nice
Good
banish. But
Still alive?
Spuddy's hitting like 9 autos. He hits a couple more. And Calvin does drop for first blood over the Niflheim Wargs.
Just over-aggression from Calvin there. Decides to step up to that purple buff, not putting any respect onto the damage output of this double physical lane. Even Nike to a certain extent, just like the raw scaling of her abilities early on, with Rend in particular. Enough to put pressure on the Calvin. Defense shred from Spudio, benefiting the support as well. Worst target in some trouble. Uses the beads, but why? The stun hadn't applied just yet. If he leaps over the wall, he's beadsing either way. He wasn't crippled. He's alive though, nonetheless. So I suppose better to have used it and not needed it than the other way.
If this set has just like given you, I mean, I feel like it's really testing the analytical part of your brain. You know, like I think we've gotten to the point now where we're talking dubs and dingers.
Bro, I feel like Owen Wilson, man. I feel like the most like.
Why?
Yeah, why?
Why?
Is that no? That's not what he.
That's like a preacher guy.
What does he normally say? It's not
Wow.
Wow.
Wow. No, the why guy is like a preacher. It's a video of like a preacher dude on stage, and he's going, "Wow."
Oh, he
Why?
sounds like Owen Wilson.
Yeah, he goes, "Why?"
Yeah, that's it. I'm that preacher guy.
Just why? You do it so much better than I do. That's just, God. Gen Zers even better at mimicking memes than.
Yeah, we grew up with the internet, so I just like had exposure to a lot of different dialects early on.
Right, you know, back in my day, I had to walk uphill in snow back and
Both
forth
ways.
with just 2 sticks to rub together for my entertainment. You know, that's all I had.
2 sticks.
And it was fun.
Isn't the expression 2 pennies?
No, yeah, that's when you don't have a lot of money.
Oh,
I
okay.
mean, I didn't have 2 sticks or 2 pennies. I had 2 sticks, but not 2 pennies. When I was like 3, I guess. Angry sends out his stinger towards Ollie. Shred down the solo tank Nike, Mip, I think is in for a bit of trouble here. A hammer, a stinger, all that connecting.
Well, she could block autos at least.
Yeah, that's true.
Up against AMC and Freya. you
That
know?
gets dubs.
That
Unfortunately, I think Ollie is in for a tough game. But if the Wargs are able to play like they did in Game 1 and just overwhelm with damage, that could catch the Ravens off guard. As the safety of Spudio is here. Another horrific emblem out, and that'll be the first kill of the game to the Highland Ravens and adapting on the board.
Just an easy rotation over. Sure, Spudio incredibly survivable on Charybdis with the 3rd ability and the ultimate and the beads, all for CC immunity. If you don't have access to all of them, that means that the chase down's pretty easy, and you're only inside the mall for so long. Thought maybe we'd see some aggression from Worst Turtle towards Angry there. Ooh. Has phenomenal scaling into the late game, especially with Bumba's Hammer, but that's a long ways off early on. It's all about that first rotation of abilities, and as of now, stun connects, forces the beads from Angry, and that should spell the end of the engagement. The Niflheim Wargs get aggressive on the right-hand side of the map, create the space to rotate through, and force off that defensive relic. Now the Highland Ravens, specifically Angry, going to play pretty defensively, at least in the center of the map.
Myth, of all of these supports that are building Chronos Pendant nowadays, and I'll hold this thought, as the Niflheim Wargs are invading the blue buff successfully, I might add. Ollie will pick that one up. Adapting, low health, no mana. We'll just have to watch it drop. Of all of the supports who are building Chronos Pendant, where do you think Fafnir lands on the old tier list of synergy and effectiveness? Efficacy, I don't remember which one.
I mean, he's not the worst user. Just having access to your ability is pretty important for Fafnir.
Transformation through from Calvin, stinger onto Ollie, and a kill to the Highland Ravens. Lights go out though. I was gonna say it. Like a Tori wins this one. It's got to dash away. Calvin and Angry had turned together. Might have been one dead Xbalanque, especially now
close.
that adapting is here. Red buff able to be invaded though by the Osiris, and so the Highland Ravens Myth able to knock down a kill and grab some farm back for themselves on the map.
You know, when I play this this Osiris skin, it actually freaks me out because sometimes I think I'm an enemy because he glows red.
I had this conversation with Gore
Did you really?
about it. Not necessarily thinking he was an enemy, but just how red. My goodness, he's on fire.
I don't know what it is. And you know what? And it's an example, I suppose, of how dumb I was growing up. I always associate anything red with enemies. I believe the year was 2005, a video game called Perfect Dark Zero.
Was the internet out then?
Barely. It was on the Xbox 360.
How many sticks did you have at that time?
At least 2, and I was rubbing them together at that. Anyway, Spudio looking for a goal. won't be able to connect it. Valkyrie's discretion to avoid the damage. So as I was saying, when you play Perfect Dark, now hold on, I got this one. Kana on the retreat should be able to get away from there. DameNWK goes over to the Niflheim Wargs. When you play online multiplayer, the enemies were always red, and I spent a solid year Googling how to play on the red team.
You Gen Zers just don't get it. Biteyyy banished. Porsche, Coast, you gonna get out of this one. Yeah, it was a decent initiation from Ollie, but defensive enough from Coast to get him out of the fight. Biteyyy has just been wailing away on Calvin. Ichabale trying desperately to help out, but Calvin is gonna live anyway, and now adapting here in the duo lane. Ollie is slowed, Ollie is tethered, but another banish on the Biteyyy. Wargs just can't disengage. Fire shards out from Kha'Zix. And somehow everyone will live over here on left. A bunch of yellow health bars, but no kills.
Yeah, look at the relic usage though. Beads lost for Poorish Coast, and Horrific down for Calvin in exchange for just the Horrific from Ollie, I believe. The beads from Victoria were used a little bit earlier on. Now some pressure over towards Calvin, but in the tower you should be pretty safe as of now. The Niflheim Wargs certainly have enforced a slower pace of this game as opposed to the first two matches this set, which should fit their composition. Triple Hunter composition, of course, not going to be the strongest in the early portions. Only after you're able to stack up some of these items, then you can start looking towards aggression. But you've also got to take into account, sure, maybe each one of those picks individually is stronger in the late game, but your composition probably doesn't scale so well because your initiation isn't incredibly strong and you've only got the one source of magical damage, who should likely be going slightly bruiser. Otherwise, I would expect to see adapting make some rotations over towards the soul lane shortly. So who does the slower pace really favor? It's an interesting conversation. Which team scales harder? Compositionally, I would argue the Ravens, but each individual, like tit-for-tat god pick, probably the Wargs.
You know, like Freya and AMC later on.
Oh, I love those picks later on, but like, you gotta talk about like all these hunters. There's a lot of them.
I mean, there's 3 to 2.
That's right.
The one extra hunter does make a big difference. Pyromancer to the Highland Ravens. Objectives are going to be unsafe this game. Hey, Matt, you called it. A rotation through from adapting. Kha'Zix in the mist. Goes up. Fire shards used defensively. Going to see a lot of high player damage numbers from Kha'Zix throughout this game, especially if the ultimate forced defensively over in lane. Worst Turtle making his way to right. Lure Jungle, haven't seen much from it just yet. Dazzling offensive, no stun. But Worst Turtle will use the beads anyway. And so adapting and Kanamif going to put some pressure over on right, defending their blue buff, keeping Worst Turtle on a slower pace on the sewer jungle.
Now Calvin's in trouble. Sentinel of Zeus from Ollie just to move into that tower. And that's really all it did, was allow him to survive walking in that tower. That's all it did for 2 tower shots. And from there, should be a reset back to neutral. Niflheim Wargs have not got much left in the tank unless Worst Turtle connect with the stun. Cannot. Turn around potential for Angry. No stinger. And no chance. Worst Turtle lands 1 auto attack, takes off about 10% of Angry's HP, and he says, that's enough for me. Walks himself out.
So many almost kills this game. You know, the pace is slowed down in the kills department as far as confirmed kills.
Oh, he should be.
But not so much as fighting. There we go. Caster's Curse. Kana rotates from soul lane, picks up 1 onto Worst Turtle. Now a red buff standing, and the Highland Ravens, specifically adapting, wants it. Won't be able to grab it. There's 3 members of the Wargs able to split it. Is there a fight to be had, though? No, the Ravens will back away. So at least a kill for the Highland Ravens.
The Highland Ravens also extend their gold lead, possibly for the first time this match, to a, I suppose, noteworthy amount. Porsche Coast, surrounded by 2, the Niflheim Wargs would love to be able to chase this one out, force those beads, force the ultimate, force something. Instead, it's their own purple buff. That's all the Wargs are concerned about on the left-hand side. Porsche Coast has just been free-farming.
Kha'Zix jumped on by Calvin. Gotta be a kill here. As an Aegis used. Ultimate, yes, but Kha'Zix won't have the time. Calvin transforming. Actually slows down potential further fight from the Niflheim Wargs. And Tier 1 tower slowly being worked on, though Ollie is now in behind 3 members of the Highland Ravens over in solo. Double knock-up, Sentinel of Zeus on all 3. The shield is worked down, and this actually looks like a winning fight for the Niflheim Wargs if they can chase down these kills. Kana is
block.
low, but Kana will not die. Adapting reinitiates. Tori has got to leave on the back of the fight now. Ollie jumps back towards adapting, and the tier 1 tower is no safety as Worst Turtle picks up the kill, and Calvin answers back.
Angry, easy rotation. Stinger connects with Calvin. Credit for the second kill of this rotation, both going over to the support of the Highland Ravens. Not exactly the most ideal placement of that golden experience, but still certainly something you can make use of. 1 level lead for the Fafnir and continued aggression. Tori playing with fire, steps up for an attempted blue buff defense. Unsuccessful. Ollie, you're slow. What can you do?
Is Ollie not going to die?
Give him a second.
There he goes. Calvin.
All 3.
All 3 what?
All 3 kills that happened over there.
Oh.
All for Calvin.
Well, yeah, he's got Chronos Pennant. He is swinging.
Why?
He is hitting dingers.
This composition does hit dingers, man. I'm willing to bet it all.
All right, let me ask you this. Does the Highland Ravens hit dingers because the Wargs don't get dubs, or do you think, regardless of the dub taking of the Wargs, the Ravens composition would hit dingers?
This is a dingers composition regardless, man. I mean, you could cover up, this is like easily an SBL comp. I mean, the only thing that's different is the
Yeah, that's
Amaterasu.
true. That's true. You're right. It's just a
Yeah,
real
it's
composition.
just like a really good comp, yeah. That's a dinger slammer.
It is. The Highland Ravens hitting 3,000 gold worth of dingers in the first few moments of this game.
Just get out of the stun, man.
No. I want to get stunned.
I guess.
I guess. Yeah, Kha'Zix, fully stacked Warlock staff. Gets a Soul Gem, a little bit of healing, nice burst damage. Some CDR helps there as well. Maybe Soul Reaper after that. A little extra burst. Built into the build? Unsure, but the Highland Ravens are starting to roll here, Myth. It's been a slower build-up from what we've seen in the last couple of games, but we still kind of arrived there nonetheless. They Porsche Coast well underway, a couple rings.
Ooh, big whiff.
Worst Turtle. Looks like we'll be able to survive just fine. There was pressure out from Calvin. And you know, Myth, Calvin has really impressed me this set. In a chaotic set,
Yep, has been chaotic.
the wherewithal playing Kepri a couple times, now over on this Fafnir. I think Calvin has really stepped up for this Ravens team.
Yeah, I feel like Calvin would be like, as far as team dynamic goes, he's like the straight man. He's just playing it super serious. Just, guys, I'm trying to get my SEC paycheck, all right? These guys are a stepping stone of my journey. And then like everybody else in the Highland Ravens is like the goofy emoji, you know the one, tongue out?
Yep.
Yeah.
Now you're even speaking in memes, Myth.
That's not speaking, it's an emoji, man.
What?
That's just it's just a normal little,
I thought you were saying like Goofy, like the character.
nah, it's like, I think the emoji is just called goofy.
Like when you type it, it replaces it.
Yeah, I
Like,
think so.
how many times have you typed out the word like laugh or smile or something like that, hoping to replace it with the emoji up top?
Never
and just
I hit the
forgotten to?
emoji button, bro.
Like you go into the little smiley
Yeah.
face button. No, I type the word laugh and then the option to replace the word with the emoji.
How would you
up
get
top.
the demon face emoji? The one with the big nose.
You learn what it's called, and you just type that out instead of scrolling through all your emojis.
Well, it's in the most recently used, man.
Right, so it's easier for you, but I'm, too lazy. So, unlucky for me. Highland Ravens. Not unlucky at this point. My goodness. When I said 3,000 dingers worth of gold, that was like a minute ago. We have 2,000 more gold built up
So many dingers.
just passively. Highland Ravens don't even need to get kills, apparently, to build up this gold. Ultimate used by a Tori. And Kha'Zix. Okay. Chunks down some damage, yes, but what does it do? Just reveal that the Highland Ravens are going to get this purple buff a bit more free. This Worst Turtle might have to jump over the wall. Angry, yeah, rotates over from mid. Sure is. It looks like a Gold Fury on the menu for the Ravens.
Horrific and Sunder has got
my
to
God.
be one of the highest, just like, hey, I'm feeling confident style of pickups for your relics. So Calvin feels like he's under no risk and his team's under no risk, decides to go purely aggressive in the relic selection. And considering how quickly that Gold Fury was removed from the map, what was that, sub a second almost, maybe 2 seconds? I'm thinking he made the right call. Highland Ravens can continue their push across the map. We're looking at a match that could be similarly paced to Game 2, depending on how this next rotation of Fire Giant goes for them. Niflheim Wargs in the same position last time around did not show too much defense around the Fire Giant proper, and with Angry taking the 1v1, but taps the 2v1, We might be in another situation where Fire Giant just goes down with 0 defense for the Warriors.
Whoa, Ollie wants to finish off the kill, unable to do so. Now Calvin transforms, and Ollie gets taken down for his trouble. So adapting adds another. And the jungler for the Highland Ravens, how long ago did he join this team? A few
It's been
weeks
about
ago,
2
right?
or 3 weeks.
2 or 3 weeks, adapting, joined the squad, unretired, rejoined the
2
SEC ranks. And, you know, week 1, I think there were some growing pains, but this week specifically, I think really started to stand back out. Now, these games have been a bit more zany, but adapting has really stepped up to the task, and a Fire Giant in 18 minutes over to the Highland Ravens as they continue to run through this game. Biteyyy will not drop the purple buff, but will drop the health of adapting.
Yeah, drops him low, but adapting has Fire Giant and plenty of time to re-sustain. Probably not even too concerned about losing that tier 1 tower. If Biteyyy decides to stick around, we'll likely be able to take it for himself, but tier 1 in response to a Fire Giant, and tier 2 on the right-hand side, regroup from the Highland Ravens. No vision now, because Biteyyy has got to play safe. Similarly, Kha'Zix has got to play safe with Kana this close.
The Porsche Coast out of the Valkyrie's discretion. Kana does some decent damage.
How did he get here?
Who, Worst Turtle?
Yeah.
So SMITE is a
Third-person
third-person
action
action MOBA. Where you use the WASD keys and your
Speak
mouse.
for yourself.
If you're on PC, console of course uses the joysticks.
I'm using
And so
RDFG.
the player themselves chose to move their character in a way.
He chose that.
In a way, yeah.
Why?
Because he doesn't get dubs, man.
We knew.
Worst Turtle got a lot of dubs in game 1, but the dub well has dried up just a bit. That is a triple stun. Not a bad look for Kha'Zix, but
Coast low.
the damage hasn't finished off any kills just yet, and we are sieging a mid lane Phoenix at 20 minutes. Worst Turtle back and respawn. We'll just let the Trebuchet do some work. The mist will slowly chunk it down.
Look at it go.
Yeah, look at the Trebuchet. So superior to catapults, by the way.
What's the difference?
What?
I don't know the difference.
Between a Trebuchet and a catapult?
Yeah.
A Trebuchet is able to, oh my god, Worst Turtle. I'm not even going to get a chance to break down why a Trebuchet is more superior. Because the Highland Ravens, in 21 minutes, have broken open the base of the Niflheim Wargs. They've gotten 2 kills as well.
They beat their own record.
Are they about to close out the game here in game number 3? There's a lot of damage from the Wargs and a double stun from Biteyyy, but out of nowhere, the Ravens have ignited this game, and they will end the game and the set in 21 minutes in game 3.
Just another quick pace, right? I mean, slower pace. I feel like for the first 10 minutes, it was a whole lot of farming and waiting, but once the team fight phase started to roll through, the Highland Ravens said, hey, our composition is good, and the Niflheim Wargs is not, and therefore won every single team fight, every single objective, took every single tower, won the majority of their 1v1s, and then the match immediately afterward, beating their own personal record.
Yeah.
What was the last one? 23 minutes? Now we're down to 21. They shaved 2 minutes off the top.
Just got progressively faster. Wargs get a 25, 26-minute win in game 1, and 23 into 21. And this was important, remember, for the Highland Ravens. The Wargs were out of the playoff picture. The top 4 teams from each region of the SEC move on to playoffs. So the Wargs were just playing because they had a match on this day. They didn't have anything to play for as far as playoffs go. But the Ravens, they go the Gladiators with 1 win, the Ravens with 2. There's potential for some weirdness as far as standings and playoff picture goes, but the Ravens confirm their spot with the win here. They'll improve to 3-2 in the EUSEC to end their phase. And it was just such a great look. The compositions be what they may. You still have to play the game and beat the opponent with a relatively high scaling composition on the other side, and the Ravens were able to do so.
Dave, I feel like the fans at home have got a pretty good idea of how this one came to be, and I don't want to leave them on a cliffhanger. What's the difference between a catapult and a trebuchet?
Huh?
Catapults, trebuchets, what's the difference? And don't touch your laptop. Hands off the laptop, mister.
It's the way they're constructed and the way the stones are thrown. Because think about it, a catapult is a bit lower to the ground and the arm sticks way out at the back. And then there's tension or something and it just kind of, you
There's like a fulcrum in there for sure.
Right, and it like flings it forward, whereas a trebuchet is like up and angled down, and it like hurls it up and over. And so a trebuchet is superior, because a catapult is
Which one was invented first?
probably a catapult.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Much more simple. I mean, think about it. It's a rock on the back being held with some tension, and then it just kind of flings it forward.
I
A
appreciate
trebuchet
that.
is
Thank
like
you.
much higher and held back.
I
and
missed the medieval warfare class, so
Did you?
that's good for you.
No, that's like a series of memes I think on Reddit about how a trebuchet is just there's a
It's like a
subreddit
thing?
called
Like, there's a
trebuchet
thing?
memes about how it's a superior siege weapon. That is one set in the back pocket for today. The EU SEC underway. We got one more set a bit later on. Again, had some fun in this one. Niflheim Wargs able to grab a game win in game number 1, but the Ravens in back-to-back games will take it. Hex Mambo up against the Aru Scorpions. Maybe less playoff implications in that one, but still teams competing for higher and lower seeds. And then, of course, the Gilded Gladiators and the Styx Ferrymen with a lot to play for tomorrow. And that'll be tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. The Gilded Gladiators and the Styx Ferrymen will round out this phase in the USEC. But Dave, why is there still stuff to play for? Well, the Gilded Gladiators at 1-3, and the Styx Ferrymen at 2-2, and the top 4 go to playoffs from each region. A win for the Gilded Gladiators puts them at 2-3, and also the Styx Ferrymen would drop to 2-3. So Myth, that's set.
Yeah, then you
High
got the
importance.
head-to-head, the point advantage.
Points,
you gotta
right.
get in there
In the
and
weeds.
figure it out.
Figure it out.
It potentially could be a tiebreaker situation as well. I mean, there is potential for it. I can't say one way or the other. That's for people that are much better at math than me.
I think that's just knowing how it works. You know, there's no math.
Dude,
involved right now.
there is like a legitimate PEMDAS to the admin team. Like, I don't know it.
Right, I'm saying I don't know what the I don't know what the tier list of all of the tiebreakers are. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I got you. The PEMDAS.
Right, but if I knew, I'd be able to do the math.
Yeah, if you knew the PEMDAS.
Yeah. Okay. Mifflin has officially run me down, so I'm going to take a quick break. We will here as well, but stick around. More EU SEC coming up next.